On this episode of Latinas, we'll hear from both political parties about the upcoming election, meet a breast cancer survivor, get spellbound by two good Brooklyn brujas, and so much more. Latinas starts now.
Welcome to Latinas, the show that's all about nuestras mujeres in the Latinx community. I'm Tinabeth Piña. Election day is right around the corner. So what happens when a candidate in the middle of an election campaign has to rethink her strategy because her district is at the epicenter of the pandemic? Here's the story of Jessica González-Rojas, a Latina running for a seat in the New York State Assembly.
Running for office in the middle of a pandemic, it's just been tragic. We went from, being able to go outside and knock on doors and talk to voters to all of a sudden being quarantined, and we immediately shifted from door knocking to phone banking, and we started calling neighbors every single day, and we focused first on seniors. And this community was the epicenter of the epicenter. Elmhurst Hospital is just a few blocks away. I heard ambulances go by every moment. It was that ring of the ambulance sound, and that was really hard to hear while we're talking to people and they're telling us they don't have food, they can't get their medicine, they can't leave their house. Even younger, healthier people didn't want to leave their house to get medicine or food because they might have an elder at home. So it became less about me, voting for Jessica, and more about I want to know if you're okay. Do you have your needs met? Do you need any assistance? So it was the opportunity to really step up and lead in this moment and be the community leader that I've always been. I'm glad I was able to do that, but it was heart-wrenching that it had to happen, that our people were falling through the cracks, particularly immigrants and people who are undocumented did not get a dime of assistance, zero. I decided to raise my hand last summer to run for the New York State Assembly in the 34th District, which represents the communities of Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside. And excitingly, I got to win the primary. I am the Democratic nominee. I'm also a Working Families Party nominee, and I go to run in November in the general election. I'm so blessed. I have a partner of 23 years who we've been together since college, and he's been amazing and very supportive and my biggest cheerleader. And then I have a 9-year-old son who has actually learned a lot about civics, right? Because I'm explaining what I'm running for and what it means and why it's important to vote. So it's been actually a really kind of beautiful experience. What's going to be really difficult is spending half the year in Albany for the session and being able to, again, fight for the things that we want to fight for, the bills and policies and the systemic change that we need. My background was really important. Growing up as a Latina and first-generation Latina here in the United States, where I was navigating the cultures of my family and my community, with the challenge of my father wanting me to assimilate and speak English and learn the culture of the United States so that I could succeed. So understanding those realities is something that is really ingrained in my life, and understanding the struggles that immigrants face. So I think as a Latina, so many of us experience that, whether it's running for office or getting a job or being a community leader. We're always, invisibilized, our leadership is minimized, and it's really hard, and you have to just remember to stand in our power and know that the community is behind us and that we're doing this for betterment of our community and to create the change that we need, that we've experienced, that we want to see.
Democrats and Republicans each think their candidate is the best choice for the American people. But is either political party catering to Latinos in particular? We're about to hear how they agree to disagree on today's Caliente Caliente.
The Latino vote is the sleeping giant. And then tucked into that vote are other subcategories: women, Catholics, moms, suburban moms. We're just not a monolithic group.
I feel like the parties have been ignoring the Latino vote and haven't really been doing enough to really bring them into the fold, and something that we really need to get over, because the Latino vote cannot be taken for granted.
I agree that we should not be taken for granted, but I also feel that a lot of people don't know how to talk to us. We are not just in Spanish. We just don't have one media outlet. We consume a lot of different types of media, and we're not represented properly.
As a conservative, I don't feel ignored by my party. My issues are the same issues that my neighbors are facing in so many ways. The number one thing affecting Latinos right now and how this election will go is the economy, and frankly, socialism. As a Hispanic mom, I am telling you, I do not want to import the bad ideas that many of us left those countries for. Socialism has never worked. I used to live in Venezuela. I know many Cubans. I know what those policies have wrought, and I don't want to bring them here. I think Joe Biden is a Trojan horse, frankly, for a very radical socialist leftist agenda, the agenda of AOC and Bernie Sanders, and that concerns me.
I guess for me, as a very progressive lefty democratic socialist, I see my blue as shades of blue. There was never this, kind of Biden and Bernie mix. Those ideologies are very separate, and they are going to be separate, and they're not going to be legislated or governed the same way, but somehow now that we're in a general election, we're the same thing. And that's what I don't understand.
I think that the United States is very far from socialism. And I don't think that we're going anywhere close to becoming a socialist country. I am pro-choice, I am pro-immigration, I am pro-worker, I support Black Lives Matter. I want to see policies that truly reflect the needs of the working poor in the United States. Actually, what I think is Trump has been pushing more of a fascist sort of agenda. And we need to get away from that. We need to preserve our government.
I don't want Marxism, socialism, Bernie Sanders ideas, or AOC's ideas running our country. I don't. I believe America should be America, and if we will not be America, if we implement the socialist ideas that, Martha, you claimed that you already said you're a socialist on this show.
Democratic socialist, there's a difference. Canada is democratic socialist, there's a lot of different concepts and ideas, and maybe we haven't been doing it the right way for the last 40, 50 years.
I proudly believe in American capitalism. I believe in economic freedom.
Well, then why does your president not support small businesses and allow PPP and mortgage relief? That's not pro-business at all.
Listen, President Obama and Joe Biden had the weakest recovery since the Great Depression. Donald Trump brought the greatest economy, and Hispanics had never done better than under Donald Trump. And so my question to you is, do you recognize that Donald Trump has done some really great things for the American worker?
I recognize that he has highlighted America's dependency on foreign countries to create products. I can appreciate the fact of wanting to bring it back to America, because that's something that is part of the American dream, is that we are allowed to be business owners and to start our own businesses and be able to create things. But it's hard when you're competing with China and other markets that make things cheaper. I can appreciate that much. I'm
not surprised at anything in this conversation, because this is what I live in my own family, right? I have the sector of my family that's Pentecostal, they live in Florida, and they vote for Trump. And then there's me and my sector of my family. We need to have more of these kind of debates within our communities, and really look at these issues and what's happening. What I really want to see is a big number of people coming out to vote, whether it's through their absentee ballot or whether they actually go to the box, and that it gets counted. And that really matters to me.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and believe it or not, breast cancer is still the most commonly diagnosed and leading cause of cancer death among Latinas. Elena Romero sat down with one breast cancer survivor and tells us what Latinas need to know.
My name is Amanda Acevedo, and I am a model, actress, designer, and I want to share my story of metastatic stage 4 breast cancer.
45-year-old Amanda Acevedo was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago. The identical twin and single mom says her shocking diagnosis was her lifesaver.
Before my cancer diagnosis, it was just difficult. I had an autistic son that I didn't know how to handle. I didn't believe in myself. I felt I gave up on all my dreams. I was depressed. I was addicted to certain things. I was numbing myself. I was definitely going to a place where if I did not stop, I probably would not be here today.
When Acevedo discovered a lump in her breast, she decided to ignore it, hoping it would go away. But the lump grew larger, causing her tremendous pain.
I decided I had to face this, that I had to check what was growing and what was starting to hurt me. They did a mammogram first, an ultrasound, and they really couldn't detect exactly what it was. So they sent me the same day to get a CAT scan, which is a more in-depth look. After the scan results, that's when they said that you do have 3 lumps and it is suspicious for cancer. The one that I have is HER2 positive.
Acevedo had never had a mammogram prior to her diagnosis and had no history of breast cancer in her family. In hindsight, that shouldn't have stopped her from getting one.
No one in my family had a cancer diagnosis, which is probably the reason why I didn't check right away and why I didn't want to face the doctors or go and check. So that is what I want to share with women out there, to know that no matter if your family has it or not, you need to check.
Studies have shown that Latinas are diagnosed with more advanced breast cancers than other women, and that may be due to lower mammography rates. In 2018, an estimated 24,000 new cases of breast cancer were reported among Latinas, the same year Acevedo was diagnosed.
Knowledge is power. To get your mammogram early. Do not waste your time. If you feel anything, it is a sign. Just get it done. Earlier the better. Even in your 30s now, get it checked.
Celebrating 2 years of life, Acevedo is very active in advocating for breast cancer awareness. She has also donated her cells to the Metastatic Breast Cancer Project, a patient-partnered research initiative hoping to transform our understanding of the disease. And Acevedo continues to move forward with her career. In fact, her very own clothing line is expected to launch in 2021.
There's a rainbow behind every cloud. This is what I have now, so now I want to help other women experience, to make them feel better, to understand that it's not a death sentence, that you can be happy, you can fight.
Remember, breast cancer does not discriminate and can occur at any age. Please make sure to get your annual mammogram. For Latinas, I'm Elena Romero.
Sonia Sotomayor has been an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States since 2009. She's the first Hispanic and only the 3rd female member of the court. Born in the Bronx to Puerto Rican parents, Sotomayor decided to become an attorney at 10 years old while watching the legal TV show Perry Mason. She eventually earned a scholarship to Princeton University and in 1979 graduated from Yale Law School. In the 1980s, Sotomayor worked as an attorney in New York City, and in 1992 was appointed as a U.S. District Court judge, where she gained fame as the judge who saved Major League Baseball with her strike-ending decision in favor of the players. In 1998, Sotomayor became a judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, where she heard more than 3,000 cases. As a Supreme Court justice, Sotomayor has specifically fought for the protection of affirmative action programs, upheld the Affordable Care Act twice, and ruled to legalize same-sex marriage in all 50 states. Sonia Sotomayor is today's Badass Latina.
We caught up with 2 CUNY professors who are not only identical twins, but also happen to be 2 brujas from Brooklyn. But don't worry, these are 2 good brujas with a healing touch.
Bruja, it means witch. And it's a word that has a lot of taboo attached to it because traditionally, especially in the West, bruja or witch is a woman who dabbles in like black magic or is not necessarily connected to God. We're reclaiming the word as a woman that traditionally was very powerful, is rebellious, and is very committed to living her life in true integrity and knowledge of self. For us, it's also a reclamation of magic, practical magic, ancestral knowledge that I think everybody knows. It's in their DNA somewhere, and we're just helping people to remember through Kundalini Yoga, through meditation. And then as social scientists, both of us, we marry this like academic logic, masculine, with the intuitive, feminine. Yes, all women are brujas. Yes, absolutely. Ooh, like I got chills just thinking about that. So I think that because we are socialized to be more feminine, every woman has access to that erotic, which makes us a bruja. Just unapologetic, creative, and very courageous in expressing her identity however she needs to express it. And for me, women that are mothers, ya the bruja suprema. You are like the brujas suprema, seriously. Our main focus is on womb wellness because the womb is where life is carried and birthed. And without healthy wombs that create life, humanity cannot exist. And within a patriarchal context, like we've lived for the past 600-700 years, women have been conditioned and others have been conditioned to devalue women, specifically the power in our wombs. And we find that in focusing on the wombs, we allow women to tap into a level of power that can really change their life for the better. We also focus on the fact that as a woman, our sole purpose is not to create a life, but you also create ideas, you create relationships, you create the courage to leave a relationship, to start a life that you want. We like to call it woke womb work. Our work is also rooted specifically in women of color because as Afro-Latinas, as Afro-Dominican Black women, we realize that because of centuries of enslavement and exploitation, especially the way that women of African descent, their wombs were used to create property, right? That has left a legacy in our DNA that leads to certain traumas that women today do not even recognize stem from like ancestral trauma. Brujas wouldn't be brujas if it wasn't for our mother because she was the one that sustained the Afro-Indigenous practices that in Dominican Republic is called La 21 Divisione. My mother never sat us down and was like, this is how you build an altar. But we saw her do it so much that when we started to reclaim this in our late 20s and started reading books on how to build an altar, I would be like, oh, we don't need this. I know this. We know this. Growing up in New York in the 80s and 90s, our parents as immigrants had to get creative. But then we took that creativity and that grit and we're creating these platforms for transformation. New York is like the backdrop. It's so masculine that you have to be feminine to survive. Yeah. You know, the meditation, the spiritual baths, the yoga, all of that keeps you in a space where you can not only survive, but strive.
The restaurant industry has been dealt a tough blow during the COVID-19 pandemic. But one Latina-owned eatery pivoted, and its owners shared with me their strategy to stay in business.
Oficialmente fue el 29 de febrero, hicimos como el gran opening, ya de que ya estábamos abiertas completamente, de que ya iba gente, de que estábamos haciendo el turno desde por la mañana hasta por la noche.
En la semana del 15 de marzo al 20, pues ya era como bastante aterrador y ya empezamos como a mirar cómo íbamos a hacer.
Earlier this year, Nena Sierra and Viviana Lewis, the owners of Palenque Colombian Food, shared with CUNY TV's Nueva York the trials and tribulations of opening a new restaurant and how they unfortunately had to shut it down 2 months after its grand opening due to COVID-19.
Al cerrar, empezamos pues a pensar, ¿qué vamos a hacer?
Afortunadamente pues queda el espacio de la cocina bien grande y lo podemos adaptar para hacer todo tipo de comida que queramos y simplemente hacer food processing.
Nena and Vivi started making and selling arepas and empanadas from the restaurant's kitchen and personally delivered them door to door. Although that initial pivot worked well for them and has evolved into a new online business, Nena and Vivi were eventually able to reopen their restaurant with sidewalk dining this past summer. And I spoke to Nena about it via Zoom.
¿Y alguna vez pensaste que cuando estabas desarrollando este restaurante que también tendrías un comedor al aire libre?
Pues eso siempre lo había soñado. Yo decía, wow, tengo que sacar el permiso del sidewalk. Y el permiso del sidewalk es carísimo, es mucha burocracia ante el Health Department, el DOT, no me acuerdo. En fin, pero para mí era como un sueño.
Claro. ¿Y fue fácil la transición?
Esto es algo nuevo para nosotros. Ojalá nos deje la ciudad de seguir con las sillas y las mesas afuera, y tendríamos que invertir en como en unas divisiones de plexiglas y unos calentadores para dividir cada mesa. Ojalá nos dejen de tener gente adentro, porque es mucho mejor, obviamente.
Change was unavoidable for Nena and Vivi's restaurant, but as they continue to adapt, they remain proud of what they've been able to accomplish thus far in order to keep their business afloat and offer this symbolic advice.
Voltear la arepa es lo que digo, o sea, si no te funciona por un lado, tienes que buscarle el otro lado. Somos muy orgullosas de lo que nos pasa realmente en medio de este problema tan fuerte mundial, y muy orgullosas porque, pues, de todas maneras, por más de que globalmente y políticamente es difícil para los inmigrantes surgir, para nosotros está muy bien.
When Christine EMMY was laid off due to COVID-19, she decided to create an Instagram account to help her and other Latinas combat the anxiety, fear, and uncertainty that we're all experiencing. And she's doing it one laugh at a time, making her today's Latina on the rise.
My name is Christine EMMY. I am the creator of Perreo Pandémico, which is a very quirky, interesting, meme-ish account, I guess people have been calling it. But it's essentially kind of an account that features reggaeton lyrics that are tweaked to reflect COVID lifestyles. I also like to say that it's kind of an homage to Puerto Rican culture, because resilience is kind of like in our DNA, so we'll turn everything into a party. I was visiting my parents down in Puerto Rico for a couple days, or at least that was a plan. I'm based in New York, so, went down there for a weekend. About 3 days later, the pandemic kind of explodes. So I'm basically stuck there, and I lose my job, I lose my medical insurance, I lose my ticket back home. I don't know where I'm gonna go, what I'm gonna do. So I'm kind of stuck in this panic. And usually when I'm panicking, there's two things that kind of keep me afloat, and that's music and comedy. I was taking a walk one day, and not on the beach because the beaches were closed, but taking a walk one day, and I started singing this Bad Bunny track called Zafaera. I started singing it in my head, and I just kind of like on autopilot just changed the lyrics to kind of tweak towards COVID times. Hoy se bebe, hoy se gasta, hoy se fuma como un rasta, which is tonight we drink, tonight we spend money, tonight we, smoke up basically. And in my head, I thought, hoy se bebe, hoy se gasta, hoy te quedas en tu casa, which is today we drink, today we spend money, today we stay home. For the first time in, 3-4 weeks, I was thinking about something other than COVID. And as soon as that hit me, I kind of just rushed back home and started just jotting down a bunch of ideas that came into my head with other reggaeton tracks and, classic reggaeton songs. I made a handle on Instagram, I created an account, and I, posted this first post, and I was like, let's see if people laugh.
People did laugh, and once Amy's friends began sharing the page and friends of friends caught wind, major media like Pop Sugar Latina took note. Today, Perreo Pandémico boasts over 7,000 followers on Instagram.
Some of the crowd pleasers have been, a ella le gusta la vitamina, dame más vitamina, which is basically a take on Gasolina from Daddy Yankees. So it's she likes vitamins, give her vitamins, I guess, rather than gasoline, which it's weird that vitamins and gasoline rhyme in Spanish. part of our projects that we do is something that I've called Lunes Local, or Local Monday, and it's kind of an initiative that I started, you know, with my heart, because I realized that small businesses were going through tough times in Puerto Rico. So I was like, hey, I should be leveraging some of these fun posts to get exposure to small businesses. So what I do is I take a song lyric and I kind of tweak it to match the business or the product that they sell. Perreo Pandémico is reggaeton in times of COVID. And that means, you know, things change. We have to tweak some stuff. We have to be careful with some things, and, you know, stuff might shift, but we're going to continue dancing. We're going to continue partying. You know, life is still going to be good.
Abby Ashola for LATiNAS.
And that's our show for today. For more information on what you just saw, check out our website at tv.cuny.edu and follow our social media profiles. We love sharing our Latina stories with you. And please make sure you tune in next month, where we'll talk to Latinas who are a part of the New York City Community Fridge Network. Uepa! Hasta la próxima. Bye-bye.